I'm with Ben Caruso, the Field Chief Technology Officer for State and Local Government at Juniper. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you, Jason.
Let's start with the most important question here at StateRAMP is who's your friend and why do we get the joy of hanging out with this lovely dog?
This is Patrick. He's a Patrick Give program, and he's a therapy dog, does a lot of great work in hospitals, and we just thought it'd be a great idea to bring him out here to meet with everybody here at the conference.
Such a beautiful dog, and he's doing so great just hanging out with us for the interview. Now we're gonna wow him with our discussion about cybersecurity and harmonization. So he's already, you can see his excitement, and that's where I'm going to start with, because here at the inaugural StateRAMP Summit, what we've been hearing a lot about is this idea of regulatory harmonization and the importance of it. And one of the things that StateRAMP is trying to do is help push that forward. So talk a little bit about, from your perspective, and why Juniper finds this is important around harmonization.
Well, I think that's a great question. Just like Patrick relieves stress, StateRAMP is relieving, I think, stress, both on the private sector as well as the public sector. If you think about the partnership kind of sitting at the center between public and private, you think about the consistency and the common framework for cybersecurity and bringing both private and public sectors together. And obviously when you think about cybersecurity and having a common framework, I think just improves cybersecurity as a whole. So I think it's a great initiative, and Juniper's been a proud member, we have Juniper AI Ops, which has been authorized at moderate impact. So very excited with the partnership that they're bringing. We'll
get to AI Ops. That's a topic of a lot of focus we hear all the time. But when you talk about relieves that stress, and what we've heard from a lot of folks in the state and local community, what we've heard folks is that there's so many things to balance. Oh, I have CISOs, and I have HIPAA, and I have this, and I have that. I'm sure that applies to vendors and industry too, that you have to do the same thing. Because if I'm your customer going, hey, I need this for CISOs, oh, I also need it, that creates more challenges for you.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine if every state was doing their own framework, and with all the different nuances, the stress that would put not only on, Juniper, but every vendor out there that offers cloud services.
And are you finding that as you have conversations with the state and local government clients, they're saying, hey, is that the biggest kind of, we need to address this harmonization piece. This is really causing me a lot of stress or a lot of problem or a lot of resources?
I think that's a great point. I mean, I think when you think about the stress that it puts on state and local governments, just from a resource perspective, they already have, systemic challenges with IT resources. So, adding that extra burden would be extremely difficult. I think probably the most important thing, especially with this conference, is the awareness that it's bringing state and local governments, StateRAMP, on what they can provide. It's really not just one more thing they have to do. It's really about taking a lot of the work and effort off of their plate.
And I think when I talked to the StateRAMP folks earlier, one of the things they mentioned was this idea of shared services. And sometimes shared services can get a bad rap. It's people don't kind of understand the concepts, or they see it in a different light. How has you seen the adoption of StateRAMP increase? As you have seen people get more familiar with it, what are some of the common things that they are asking you all about from an industry perspective?
Well, I mean,
beyond, did you qualify, of course?
Oh, yeah. Obviously.
That's the one question they start with.
Absolutely. Especially when it comes to our cloud service, Jason, it's becoming increasingly important to have it on a GovCloud instance and have it be authorized at the proper impact. They obviously want to know about what are we collecting from the network, and it's all metadata, 100 or so metadata points on the experience, right? Finding out when users having a bad experience, bringing that into the cloud, and then bringing it back to actionable insight. So they really just want to understand how we're leveraging that data to provide them benefit.
And what it comes down to is, I've had a friend, I think he got tired of you and came to hang out with me a little bit. Yeah. He's like, wait a minute, you got the itch. I'm finding the right itch. The data piece is obviously becoming more important when it comes to cybersecurity, understanding where your data is, what is in it. And from a StateRAMP perspective, and from where Juniper sees it, how are agencies taking advantage of StateRAMP to understand that data piece? Is it just a matter of, okay, my data is with this cloud provider at this point, or is it multiple data points coming together to understand really your risk and how you're managing the risk of cyber?
Right. I think it's, as you know, it's a very diverse industry. It really kind of depends on the agency. I mean, one of the things that StateRAMP's doing is with CISOs task force. I think it's a very important because, there are certain qualifications that CISOs brings that, like maybe a health and human services agency may need something different. So I think that's kind of where I think the task force that StateRAMP's bringing into play to help expand not only the general baseline of StateRAMP, but also, helping agencies specifically.
I just had a great conversation recently with the CISO from Arapahoe County, Nikki Rosecrans, and she talked about that CISOs task force and the importance of it doing the overlay between StateRAMP. Is that something that, again, goes back to our harmonization discussion? Is that something you'd like to see more of, that the overlays between whether it's NIST 853 or StateRAMP or some of the ISO standards even? Is that something that the industry is really starting to say, hey, we got to fix this because of the pressure, it's kind of the downward pressure?
Great question. I mean, I think if you look at CISOs and what it does for law enforcement, and you start looking at the other agencies, and if you can use the common body like StateRAMP to kind of help fill those gaps, I think that's going to be critical going forward.
The other piece is, again, this a lot of the task force is a good example of it. StateRAMP is a good example, is the push for collaboration. And I'm sure that if you have a client that's in state 1 and state 2 wants to use StateRAMP, it makes things easier, but they can then collaborate together on kind of the contracting side and the large scale contracts that can go across the multiple states. Is that the other kind of benefit of something like StateRAMP, where more folks can take advantage of it instead of these one-offs?
Great question again. I mean, you think about NASPO being a cooperative contract and having that language inserted. Again, you're not having to go for every state. You have one StateRAMP authorization that brings commonality, again, which is going to drive consistency and harmonization.
Yeah. The last piece I just want to touch upon, you mentioned it earlier, AI ops. We can't get through, it feels like a conference or a discussion sometimes without mentioning artificial intelligence. But let's define AI ops so folks know what it is, and we'll talk a little bit why this is important to our discussion.
Well, I think Gartner coined the term AI for IT operations, acronym AI ops. And then, obviously that can go across the entire IT organization. Where Juniper focuses on AI ops is specifically for the network.
And the idea is to apply AI to understand what's happening on your network. It's not Gen AI to make my report writing easier. It's actually AI around security. It's around what?
Great question again. I mean, you think about what Open Gen AI, where the data sources come from. They can come from anywhere. So that's why they call it Open Gen AI. And then when you think about what Juniper's doing with AI ops, it's more about closed responsible AI, where we're pulling metadata from the network, whether it be security or for network experiences for every user, and bringing that into our Gov Cloud, and then providing actionable insights because of all the automation and machine learning and data science that we do with that quality data that you pull from the network. So the end goal is to solve issues before users complain, right? Because as we know, when there's an issue, the first thing people look at is the network.
Right. And I think the other piece of it is if you can get ahead of the issues too, if you say, hey, based on the history,
right,
when this starts popping, when this anomaly happens, this usually means this is about to break or needs a replacement. And that can even get you predictive and preventative. Are you starting to see folks trying to look into that?
Oh, absolutely. And then to your point, I mean, when you find a great example is when a user roams from one area to another and being able to track that, you can pick up those type of anomalies. And yeah, so we're seeing the predictive analytics, but it's also really looking at the experience of every connected user. Because here's the thing, airport's a great example. Traveler walks in the airport, has a bad Wi-Fi experience, they're not going to pick up the phone and call the help desk at the airport. They're probably going to just try and get on their private cellular, and maybe they don't write such a favorable social post.
Right.
So we're trying to do things like that for airports or other agencies. And then there's things like location services that are built in that you can drive more advanced value. So.
Right. And I think it's getting to the point where there's so much data, the complexity of networks, multiple clouds, multiple of these people still are in the hybrid world, that having something that can look at all those data points and bring it together. I'm sure the single pane of glass, I'm sure we're going to talk about that sometime.
Yes.
It will help kind of drive those decisions and make those decisions happen faster.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where central IT departments can bring better collaboration, tighter collaboration with the agencies they support, because now you're looking at empirical data, into your point, in a single dashboard. And so if the central IT department is the one managing the network, but having visibility from an agency perspective, I think that brings better harmonization just between the agencies they support in the central IT organizations.
Are you starting to get clients asking about AI ops? Is this where are we in the crawl, walk, run? Is this typical spectrum?
Well, I mean, you look across the different verticals outside of public sector and private sector. Some are moving faster than others. Like retail, they want an omni retail experience. We're seeing some of that now start to fold into the specific agencies in government. So I would say, if you say crawl, walk, run, we're probably in a walk phase, because I think it's more of an awareness. I see you later. Yeah. I think it's more of an awareness, because people have done, their processes, they're traditional, you get used to them, and you want to kind of continue those. But you start thinking back, Jason, to the systemic IT staffing problem they have. Got to start looking for ways to improve process and provide time back to people.
That was the next thing that's coming to my mind, as well as when we talk about ability to use AI ops to understand your network. You're never going to have enough people. You're never going to be able to watch we don't watch blinking lights anymore, but in the old days, when we talk about watching blinking lights, you didn't have enough people then, you definitely not have enough people now, so you have to have some sort of automation. As we kind of look forward, as we head into 2025, what do you see as some of those big topical areas, the big trends that you're following around, whether it's StateRAMP and harmonization, or even more broader digital technology in general?
Crystal ball. I would say,
or even go one step further, instead of crystal ball. What do you think will happen? I mean, who knows? Right?
Yeah, right.
Are the Commanders going to win the Super Bowl ever? That's my question. But or Ovechkin will break the goal scoring record.
Right.
But it's really like what's the top when you look at your and Juniper's? Hey, here's what we're following, and we hope can happen, or will happen, or we expect it to happen, and as you look into 2025?
It's a great question. I mean, our vision is a self-driving network, right? But are people going to let that happen? It's probably got to get to that stage where we're providing those actual insights so they can hit that easy button to fix it. Bring in more, automation, not only what Juniper does with our own data set, but being able to take that data set and provide it to other think of other vendors, what they may be able to use with that data to provide a better experience for governments. And likewise, how do I make it extensible? Because it is built on APIs. So all the data we gather, we can drive more collaborative relationships. So I think the goal is stay true to the mission of self-driving network, but also all along that path continue to drive value for our customers. In whatever way makes sense.
Well, let's see if we'll see if the Commanders win the Super Bowl, if Ovechkin breaks the record, and see if we have self-driving cars. Networks. Ben, I really much appreciate your time. Let me thank my guest. Ben Caruso is the Field Chief Technology Officer for State and Local Governments at Juniper. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time.
Jason, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.